There are approximately 200 countries in the world, depending on who's counting. Not all are recognized by all others. There are many unresolved territorial disputes, and with no one-world government that is able to impose its will across all states, such disputes remain unsettled. So how many independent countries are there? Are any countries truly independent? The short answer is yes, but very few. However, we need to define what an independent state looks like. A sovereign nation is a territory in which the inhabitants who reside are able to exercise self-determination free from external influence, where the levers of power are held by those that represent the indigenous population, working in their best interests. This includes domestic policymaking and defending against foreign threats that seek to undermine the nation, from propaganda to military incursions. Protecting the borders from foreign invasions isn't the only duty of a state in safeguarding its population. Just as important is its information space, which can be hijacked and used to manipulate and shape public opinion against their own best interests. Going by this definition, it is now clear that most countries are not independent and have been either infiltrated through soft power or outright invaded and occupied through military force. The main culprit is, of course, the good old US of A. Shocker, I know. The United States has interfered with most countries in some way, invading, occupying, infiltrating, and installing puppet regimes for the purpose of increasing global hegemony. Since the majority of the world's nation-states have fallen under the American liberal imperium, we are not going to list them all. Instead, we will look at the few which have managed to resist American power. Soft power is the weapon of choice for Washington, as it allows for plausible deniability and avoids the public objections to dropping bombs causing death and destruction, which are bad optics and politically damaging. Thus, the USA has perfected the art of propaganda and shaping public perception, both domestically and across the planet. Capturing the minds of people is a powerful tool, and there are many ways this can be achieved. Let's begin with World War II. World War II was nothing but a regime change operation, but unlike most countries that stand up to Anglo-liberal tyranny, Germany was extremely powerful, if not the most powerful opponent the USA has ever faced. It took 30 years and the combined efforts of three major powers to take Germany down. So from 1945, Germany has been, and still is, an occupied country, hosting more American personnel than the entire Middle East. The same goes for Japan. Present-day sovereignty is rare. However, it does exist. These countries are as follows: Russia, China, Iran, North Korea, Belarus, Venezuela, Afghanistan, and perhaps some of the stands of Central Asia. Others, such as Serbia, Mongolia, South Africa, Vietnam, and Bolivia, may also be free from American tyranny, but it's less clear. Notice how all of these countries just happen to be enemies of the USA, and are constantly smeared by the media as authoritarian, tyrannical, aggressive, militant, dangerous, and a threat to the so-called free world. The common denominator is they have successfully resisted American-imposed policies as they refuse to bend the knee and become vassals or colonies. In doing so, they are automatically the enemy of the New World Order. Also, they operate their own banks, free from the global financial system, a true marker of independence. Weaponizing finance is probably the most effective weapon in the American arsenal. Material interest is a very powerful tool. Most countries in the world must accept and impose modern liberal values on their own populations, as per the American model. These include a multi-party democratic government, human rights, liberal capitalism, LGBT rights, DEI, that's diversity, equity, inclusion, equality, women's rights, and so on. If they refuse, they are met with financial penalties, sanctions, political interference, and military aggression. The United States maintains its hegemony mainly through soft power, which is usually sufficient to keep most countries in check. Soft power includes mainly the use of local as well as social media, infiltration of the education system, buying off politicians, and promoting Hollywood. These avenues are effective at spreading American propaganda, where various agencies, posing as foreign aid or educational organizations, hijack the information space, shaping public perception into supporting the post-Enlightenment Masonic Anglo-American ideology known as liberalism. Bribes and blackmail are another angle of attack. By ensuring corrupt politicians remain in the governments and persecuting statesmen that refuse bribes, the country in question will be easy to manipulate. In Pakistan, for instance, half of the members of parliament are under some kind of criminal investigation. This is exactly what the USA wants. Corrupt politicians are easily moved. They are owned and will do as they're told, lest they go to jail, or worse. However, these strategies don't always work. They say every man has a price, but this is false. Not every person can be bought. Corruption is not universal. When confronted with men of honor who refuse to be servants of the devil, the bombs of democracy are released as punishment. The US always resorts to bombing countries they don't like, but not before a media smearing campaign in order to demonize their opponent for the purpose of making it acceptable in the minds of the American people to wage war on them. Accusing their enemies of not holding free elections or not being liberal enough, all the usual buzzwords. Basically, if a country doesn't resemble America enough, then they're considered backward, uneducated, and barbaric. We've heard it all before. The American empire doesn't tolerate neutrality or insubordination. There are two options: submit or be destroyed. Strength is the only guarantee of independence from these despots in Washington that run the Zionist American global empire. Choosing the path of resistance brings hardship, and not all survive the onslaught, especially in a time of unipolarity, which has been the case since 1990. But things are changing. American power is in decline, forcing the empire to retract. Having said all of this, strictly speaking, the USA, by definition, also lacks sovereignty, and is in fact itself an occupied nation. The levers of power are held by those whose loyalty lie with a foreign entity. All key positions of the state are held by dual citizens, many of whom have served in the IDF, something that is otherwise prohibited and unconstitutional. No other nationality has this privilege, and this is just the visible government, not to mention the permanent deep state. Thus, a fifth column has infiltrated and embedded itself into the power structure. Also, as mentioned previously, if those in power do not represent or work for the interests of the population, then the country is not independent. So what we have is a hierarchical pyramid where a certain elite class controls the USA, which in turn controls most other countries on the planet, which have been reduced to vassal client states that take orders from Washington, which holds them over a barrel through financial leverage. The 20th century saw most of the world fall under American imperialism, with a handful of nations able to resist, but at a cost. This group of independent countries has dwindled, with some interchanging between the two camps. The lists are not static. Some may argue that a camp of non-aligned states exists, but I would disagree, because it's how the USA views and treats other countries, regardless of their own self-declared stance. At this point, the USA is still the hegemon, so they still dictate who their enemies are, and any nominated opponents of the US face a very real existential danger, regardless of how they choose to react to this threat. Until the multipolar world solidifies, the USA still gets to designate which side a nation falls under. Once they lose that ability, then yes, there will be genuine non-aligned states that won't be at risk of getting regime changed or economically suffocated simply for refusing democracy. Thanks for watching. If you like this content, please consider subscribing. Please also share and leave a like. It's free and it helps the channel. Also, a big thank you to all of you who have very kindly donated. I very much appreciate your generosity, as this channel is demonetized. For one-off donations, it's easy. I accept PayPal and Buy Me a Coffee, or even crypto. Links are in the description. Until next time.